mouth-watering smokiness of rack of pork ribs. I have certainly enjoyed it. And the juicy bacon cheeseburger. I have enjoyed it. All throughout my life, I've been enjoying all these gluttony eateries around. So is the case of most of the people in the world. One thing is clear. Humans love meat. But why eat so much more meat than our primate cousins? And why are we drool at the sound of smell of steaks sizzling in the grill? Why do we go like that? Let's come to some basic figures. The percentage of world population that eat meat is 88%, which means 88% of the global population eat meat. According to the latest survey, which is coordinated by several prominent Western European countries, 88% of the people eat meat, and there are vegetarians approximately 7%, and pescatarians 4%. One, you know what is pescatarian? Pescatarian is those people who are vegetarian plus fish. They don't eat meat, but they eat fish. They're called pescatarian. And the vegan diet is followed by approximately 1% of the global population. This is the present scenario. But, well, I mean, that's a lot of discussion is going on all around the world on 2-3 different counts about the efficacy or our approach to meat eating. And one of the arguments in India, many people know that it's connected with the caste hierarchy, and some people think that if you are belonging to a higher caste, especially if you are a Brahmin, you should not eat meat. But if you are a Kshatriya, a fighter, then you can eat meat. All other people can eat meat, I mean, technically. But a lot of people do not eat meat. But all around the world, that approach is not there, and meat is eaten abundantly wherever it is possible. When did humans start eating meat? I mean, how have we been originally vegetarians and turned into meat later? But before coming to that question, the fundamental questions that many people raise against eating of meat, they are, I mean, connected with many things. One is as I said in India, the kind of your origins ask you not to eat meat because it could be sin. Also, if you believe in the theory of karma, everybody is reborn. So if you eat any living creature, it could be your grandfather. I mean, that's another way of seeing it. But that's not the reason exactly meat eating was stopped in one of the largest areas of vegetarianism, which is India. I'll come to that. But before that, let's see the other arguments about that. The other major argument is connected with the kind of resources that we require to produce meat. How much water is required to produce meat? How much carbon is emitted when we produce meat? If we use very less quantity of land and grass or grasslands, we can, for example, create more food. So it's not an economic way of production is one major argument that goes against meat production. A third argument is connected with empathy towards animals. We all are part of one big animal kingdom. How dare we eat other animals for our happiness, our taste, our well-being? So that's a moral argument. There's a moral argument. Then there is another economic argument. The economic argument is it's easy to produce vegetables and grains economically with less money, less effort. You can produce it. So it's uneconomic to produce meat. That's the economic argument. There is an economic argument, there is a moral argument, then there is a cultural argument, there's a tradition argument. There are so many different arguments. But again, the non-meat eaters are classified, as I told you, of many different varieties. If we cannot exploit an animal by principle, can we drink its milk? Can we use butter? Can we use leather, for example? The vegans would say, no, we should not. they have a whole lot of arguments, not only ethical argument, but also a kind of a total rejection of animal products, because it amounts to use of animals, and you have to completely keep off from animal products. That's the vegan argument, which goes when it goes to extreme. But when did we start eating meat? I mean, was this how many centuries back we started? Clear scientific evidences that prove when did we, start eating. Fossilated, evidences are there. For example, fossilated animals where cut marks or slicing for food can be seen. That's one evidence that we have. Other evidence is hunting, drawings in the caves. A lot of evidences are there. So one general understanding, which we have reached already, that at least 2.6 million years back, humans have started eating meat. 2.6 million years back. And before that, we have been mainly depending on roots, on berries and fruits and some vegetables. Raw picking stuff. We have been mainly pickers. But eventually, we turned into, the meat eaters. If you take the animal kingdom, the meat eaters are of two different varieties. One are the predators. They chase the animal to be eaten, and they chase it till it's tired, that it cannot run, and it defeats it and eat it. Lion, for example, or tiger, or a cheetah, or a leopard. And coming to some other animals, coming down, they would trick the animals, hide somewhere and jump on it. Sometimes you can see, for example, crocodiles do such things. They hide under the water with only the eyes out, and when the victim comes, then open the mouth and catch it. So they trap the animals. Some are predators, are of two varieties again, chasing the animal or chasing the victim or tricking them. Then yet another group is, they are scavengers, like the hyena. They would, of course, try to eat if food is available otherwise. But when the big animal, the predator, attacks an animal, a lot of food is wasted. They eat till they are satisfied, and then they go. Sometimes they go and come back again. But the scavenging animals, meat-eating animals, prey on the carcasses available, the dead animals, or killed animals by other predators. So they are not predators, but they are meat eaters, but not with their virtue, but the virtue of other predators working on other animals, attacking and defeating or killing or trapping animals. And if you look at the human history, we have not been predators. We have been scavengers. That's the whole evidences, paleontological evidence are leading to that we were not chasing animals, we are not hunting animals, we are not defeating animals, we were not even trapping animals in the very beginning. Now we do all these things in the natural habitat. If you see earlier times before we started producing meat, we used to hunt, we used to trap, we do all these kind of things that all other animals would do with our advanced technology that we have at our disposal. But in ancient times, we didn't do that. We were just scavengers. We, like a hyena would do, like other animals who would just eat the rest of the food available, we have been depending on that. And you can see, for example, in Africa, several tribes even now. That's the life of the tribals. Some of the tribals which were not exposed to the modern lifestyle, modern ways of gathering food. If you follow their life patterns, we can see how they do. They have been, for example, there are many tribes in Africa, forest tribes in Africa, where you wait for a lion to catch its prey. The predator attacks it. The moment it's killed, then comes 2 or 3 humans, people with long sticks. Most of these predators need a running animal to chase. Then only they get the strength to catch it. The instinct is provoked when the prey is running. But if you go straight forward in front of it, most of these predators are afraid and they cannot do anything. That's what they do. When lions catch animals, they go with long sticks and just shout and beat, and the lions are afraid. And they are not afraid. They advance forward, and finally the lion will run away, leaving the prey it has catched. It has caught. So then they take the what you call the little deer or little antelope or whatever the lion has chased and caught would become the food of the. Even now you can go to National Geographic or Discovery Channel and you can search. You can find a lot of such incidents are shown. That's shown regularly also how humans in the natural habitat would behave. They have been stealing the food like other scavengers would always try of other predators. But we are still behind that to the 2.6 million years back. What apparently we did was, we found that the food is, it's eaten by other animals. And why should we change? One of the major reasons that is explained by scientists is that between 2.6 million and 2.5 million years ago, the earth got significantly drier and the humidity has gone down. It became very hot at that time. So as a result, what happens? Our distant human ancestors, who lived to 2.5 to 2.6 years back, we can call them hominins. That's how they are generally called. The hominins, they were having fruits, leaves, seeds, flowers, bark, tubers, all these kind of things they've been eating. But as temperature goes down, the lush forests shrank and the green grasslands simply go down. As green plants became scarcer, the evolutionary pressure forced early humans to find new sources for energy to survive. And what would they do? And they have to survive. And they have seen predators chasing animals and killing and eating them. That was not their habit till then. And then they start getting the available bits and balances from these animals which predators chased. Apparently what they got, maybe the bone marrow, because they could, for example, if an animal, depending on which animal has been the predator, what they could eat, the leftover could be the skull, so they would get the brain, they would get the bone marrow, or certain little pieces of meat which are stuck to some bones. So they chewed it like we would try some hamburger, and they found and got exposed to the new food. But once they got the taste of meat, all evidences show that they have never gone back. They found, apparently during this hot, big time, we probably had a serious problem. One problem was, we means the hominins of those times. The problem was, we did not have our ancestors, did not have enough fruits or vegetables or tubers available. So therefore, they got it. But these were getting scarcer and scarcer. Then what would they do? They found that the lack of water, the heat, is reducing the vegetation at one site. The decline of vegetation would again would kill a lot of animals the natural way. When animals die the natural way, again the dead carcasses became food. So earlier, apparently, they've been watching the predators, and when they left, they got the taste of it, and then they got the carcasses, the dead animals. They fed on that like any other scavenger animal. That's what our great ancestors have been doing, the hominins. So we were not able to hunt at that time because we didn't have weapons. And our body structures, human body structures, were not good enough to hunt and chase like other predators. We didn't have claws. We don't have that running power capacity, or we didn't have the physical strength to defeat many of these animals, or the speed we didn't have. We, I mean the hominins earlier. I use we belonging to them also. But then eventually the dead carcasses became food. So we, from the scavengers, we go for the available dead animals' food. That's how we began eating food. And one of the possible things that changed everything was with the first experience of people having the cooked food. That changed everything. The meat humans digested. Eventually, they have gained evolutionary skills to get completely okay with the food that they have been getting. Our body got tuned to the new situation. But that the next stage comes. This meat that the hominins have been eating were not cooked food as naturally carcasses or this scavenging the balanced meat. But here, the moment they got cooked food by apparently a wildfire, or in wildfire a lot of animals would die. So then they get the experience of cooked food. Then they found the cooked food is tastier. It remains longer without decaying. So eventually humans get exposed to cooking food. So that changed another major thing. The cooked meat, it has, created a new big evolutionary leap in human progress. Our brains responded to that new intake of protein coming, which is more digestible and which is more absorbable, and that has helped human brain to grow further, and perhaps the human evolution got a big leap forward with our eating the cooked meat. That was perhaps the biggest leap human brain got. So this is part of history. As explained by paleontologists and other experts who go deep into the fossilated material and get their conclusions. But what's the consumption of meat now? That is perhaps when we have been very small community with very less number of people. The present production of meat or consumption of meat has grown up dramatically. Like the agriculture products the production has grown up dramatically. As you know, that 1960s, last 200 years, what we have been producing, and if you get what we gained in next 20 years, if you compare, that's something like more than 100 times we have increased our agriculture production capacity, which we call the green revolution in the whole world. Our population has been growing, but we have been producing enormous grains. But similarly, the meat production also. In the last 30 years, so if you precisely take 1988 to 2018, the meat production and consumption has gone 4 times up, 4 times. And if it goes in this present way of our consumption of meat, you know what it means? By 2050, the global meat consumption is projected to 460 million and a staggering 570 million tons. So 570 million tons would mean a consumption of meat twice than what we have been consuming in 2008. Means we had enormous growth in last 20 years, but now we are going to double it in next 30 years. And what does this mean? The meat production is of course, it's growing and growing, and more people are consuming meat. And coming into the major issues coming with this huge consumption of meat now. You know, what is the major criticism? It's valid criticism. Of course, the moral criticism and other criticisms, would not stand, because if you take moral criticism, what about predators? If you are a meat eater, and as in the biological cycle, we have to survive and we have to eat meat, and we are also not hunting anymore. We are cultivating animals for our requirement. So the structure has changed. The production patterns have changed. We would not anymore, for example, since we are not hunting down the endangered species anymore. I mean, of course, I mean, people were doing it, but the whole world is against that, and that's officially stopped. And if you touch an endangered species, it's a crime. So that part is over. The hunting down of animals is over, but we are producing food for our requirement. We are producing our meat practically, I mean, in our farms, and we are cultivating beef, we are cultivating the goat meat, we are cultivating poultry, and we are producing it. And they are not naturally grown in the forest or in the natural habitat. We create them, we make them the way we want it, and we improve the quality of the meat, we improve the tenderness of the meat, and we make it better for our consumption. And we try to see that we are not wasting too much food on them. The best productivity is to be achieved, and we are keeping on improving the methods to improve the quality of meat and less effort on that. Still, meat production is highly water demanding. That's one of the serious arguments that goes against meat production. All foods, all food that we have, that needs water. For example, everything that we produce you have to invest water to get that production. Half of the all water consumed in US is used to grow grain from the feed. So all food, for example, meat, especially beef, is among the most water demanding food products. Many people do not know it. I mean, there are religious reasons that people speak about beef, but there is another serious ecological reason. I would not accept the religious reason because that is articulated and manipulated reason. Because if you go to the ancient Indian text, I mean, for example, beef is not allowed in many parts of India. Of course, I mean, the explanation given to it is not religious reason, but of course, everyone knows that. I mean, the religious reason is the predominant, the most influencing factor behind it. But there's another serious argument against beef. That is the water that it requires. I'll show you one small example. To 1 kilogram of chocolate, if you want to produce, you have to invest in that 24,000 liters of water. When you have 1 kilogram of chocolate, it means you have spent 24,000 liters of water for that. And coffee beans, for 1 kilogram of coffee beans, coffee beans which is used for coffee powder, 21,000 liters of water is used actually. And if you go for pig meat, it's only 6,000 liters. That's why it becomes more efficient meat production. Cereals, it will be 1,600 liters. Fruit, when you have 1 kilogram of fruit, we have invested in that 1,000 liters. We directly or the nature has invested 1,000 liters of water in that. But when it goes to beef, it's 15,500 liters of water. But it is less than. If you know how much water it is used, you're using for a chocolate. 1 kilogram of chocolate means 24,000 liters of water. But 1 kilogram of beef food, you would need only 15,500 liters of water. Almost, 60% of it only. So when you eat more chocolates, you are actually consuming the precious water that we have much more than you eat 1 kilogram of meat. Vegetables, 300 liters of water per kilogram. Fruit, as I said, 1,000 liters of water is required. But the pig meat is only 6,000 liters of water required because its lifespan is small. And if you think of water as the only thing, of course, that's a very serious argument because water is going to be one of the most scarce natural resource that we are having. And that is going to be the biggest problem unless we produce water from other ways. Like, for example, from hydrogen or if we produce water from Mars or whatever it is. Humans are able to do a lot of adventurous things and we may be able to find solution for the scarcity of water. But as of now, water is going to be the most scarce product that we have. And of course, this is a problem. Now, another argument is vegetarians normally say, there are pros and cons for vegetarian food on the health side. There are interesting figures. First, I will go for the critique of vegetarian food. That's a very interesting thing. There are a lot of health benefits for vegetarian food if you don't eat meat, apart from the water thing. One can have weight loss. That's the major argument people would say, which is now disputed. Because if you go for more grains, you will gain more weight. And if you eat protein, and your body mass would increase and you can become a lean person. That's what is said. But the major argument is said that will help you to weight loss. Okay. Then it slows, global warming is slowed down if you use vegetables. Not always true. For example, if you take fruits, if you take 2 kilograms of fruit and if you take 1 kilogram of pork, the water consumption is almost the same, but the global warming is a major impact. How much carbon emission is involved? That's another major argument that comes against production of meat or cultivation of meat. The reduction of global hunger is possible because you need more areas to produce meat. And if that area is cultivated for grains, you can address the global hunger is another argument. So the habitat destruction is another argument. So then another major thing, I said that there are 3 types of people who are only the fish eaters. So the stock of fish, the fish stock that we have in the ocean, it's getting down. We don't have real control on fish like what we have on the animals now. We have a certain understanding about the number of animals, but about the fish stock that we have, the netting of fish in very, very mechanical and technical ways, we are, perhaps balance of life in the sea and destroying the life of many species of fish. That's one major argument. And it's less pollution. That's another argument. So less groundwater pollution. So the ethical concerns, that's the other major argument, the ethical concerns regarding meat consumption. But now, one thing that is not discussed and what is very important for many people is a survey that shows that there are more heart attacks for people who are consuming more meat, and there are less heart attacks for vegetarians. That's globally almost established. So that's a strong argument. But look at the figures. I've been watching at the figures and I've been cross-checking a lot of other interesting facts. Once heart attack rate is going down, why? Because the cholesterol, or the red meat is dangerous to you. In a way, if you are consuming more. But what about the other ailments that you can get when you don't have non-vegetarian food? For example, when you don't have meat. Reuters Health very clearly, gives a lot of fine figures that people who follow vegetarian and vegan diet may have less heart attacks. Their heart ailment possibilities are much, much lesser. On the other side, they have a much higher possibility to have brain stroke. So at one side, you can say that, heart attacks are reduced if you don't eat meat, but then you are at the risk of having brain stroke. And what's the proportionate difference? It's almost the same. It's only actually very small difference. It's not dramatic difference. India, we have nearly 45% of the people who claim that they are vegetarian. There is dispute about that figures because it's a kind of a value system that demands people to claim that they're vegetarian or they don't eat meat because it's considered to be a more elevated lifestyle in the Indian psyche. So many people who may actually consume meat also would publicly say that they would not consume meat. I know many people who would not eat meat in their home, but when they go out, they will go to a restaurant and eat meat. I have a lot of friends like that because in the homes it's not permitted, but they want to have some meat and they are not allowed to cook at home, but they would eat outside. But coming to figures, if these figures of heart attack is correct, it could be correct. Meat eating could be directly influencing heart attack, but only vegetable food and vegan food would directly influence to have more stroke than the other people. Having said that, having taken that figures, which country in the whole world has the highest heart attacks? China has the highest heart attacks in the world. In China, the per capita consumption of meat is very, very less because meat is very expensive. Unless you produce your meat by raising chicken, in earlier times that was promoted also, or raising your pig at home. Nowadays, more and more Chinese are working in production centers, and the homemade meat is getting reduced. And the per capita consumption of meat is very less in China. China has the highest heart attacks in the world. And the second highest heart attack in the whole world is India. And we have the highest number of vegetarians in the whole world. How does it correlate? Because if you are avoiding meat for health reasons, you have still many more bad health habits coming from your vegetarian life. Fried food. If you take the kind of figures that we have, and most of these people who have heart attacks have their heart attacks under the age of 70. And according to Times of India, there is an official report they have reported, heart attacks kill one person every 33 seconds in India. Every 33 seconds. Means every minute we have 2 persons in India dying with heart attacks. And we, in India, have the largest number of, if you take the percentage, the largest number of vegetarians in the country. How do you correlate these things? If you're strictly speaking healthy diet as the reason for becoming a vegetarian, well, they are not following many other healthy patterns of diet. They find a reason for their habits because they need a scientific sanction for their lifestyle. So therefore they claim it, but they don't go for a scientific lifestyle. Therefore we have the largest number of heart attacks in India. This report is everywhere in the world, how risky it is. And another figure, Britain has a study, the British National NHA has made studies about the prevalence of heart attacks and brain strokes, and they also suggest that heart diseases are a higher chance, but you have chances of having stroke compared to meat eaters. And what helps meat eaters to reduce the possibility of stroke is something is to be explored. There are scientific answers for that. And why it is more for meat eaters is also another factor. You cannot take India as a good example because those people who follow a pattern of vegetarianism or veganism for moral reasons or religious reasons or other reasons may not necessarily or need not necessarily follow healthy living patterns. Their lifestyles are different. Therefore, they are again exposed to heart attacks than any other people in the world. If you go for the strokes, how these figures are identified, that's also interesting. 188 middle-aged adults were taken in this, in this study, and 2,820 people develop coronary heart disease that normally can have heart attacks if they ate more meat. Hemorrhagic strokes are prevalent in non-meat eaters. If you just reduce meat, that doesn't guarantee that you don't get a heart attack. You have to have a healthy lifestyle. And reducing red meat is one amongst so many other things. And if you don't follow any other things and just reduce meat, you are again prone to heart attacks, perhaps more than any other countries in the world. There are 20% more possibilities that you can get a stroke if you don't eat any meat. The reasons are also set. For example, fish eaters have lesser. For example, if you are meat eaters, but if you eat a lot of fish, your chance of another angle that is explained is, you have a lot of, for example, omega-3 in fish would reduce your chances of heart attack. So these arguments regarding health does not stand really, and it's not very convincing. I would say that if it's a question of human taste, well, that has to be respected. So the whole question is, are you following a lifestyle based on your taste, your requirements, or are you going for a food based on your consideration for the globe, consideration for the ecological balance, consideration for the moral grounds, I mean the about animals, the life and pain of animals. Well, these are the real issues that are there. The other health angle, I don't think that would stand so big, because if you see the kind of what kind of people are, the per capita consumption of meat in the Western world is very, very high. And even when we say in countries like India, China, and Brazil, we have a lot of meat eaters, the per capita consumption of meat is very, very less. The American consumption of meat is very high. In Europe also, it's very high. And if you see a comparative figures, I mean, it's unbelievable. So I have a very close friend who is a vegan. No one other than, I mean, the president of the Irish Atheists. We had long discussions about the merits and demerits of veganism. He was trying always to convince me that veganism is one of the best ways on moral grounds and ecological grounds and the water consumption and global warming point. These were convincing points. I still feel I'm a meat eater. I eat meat, fish, and almost everything that is considered meat and fish, I would happily eat it. But if I have a convincing argument, if I have a very strong and convincing argument, I would rethink about my meat eating. But I don't have a very convincing argument in front of me. My friends who are vegans have not been successful in convincing me. One major question I asked, for example, the president of Irish Atheists, who is a vegan, and I mean, we always have very interesting and very healthy discussions on these issues. Also, I have another friend in Netherlands, I mean, who in 1995, when I first visited, he has been accompanying me all my travel. And he always wished to convince me to veganism. And I was listening to his position. I was giving a really, really listening eye for him. And at the end of the whole journey at Netherlands, I mean, in Amsterdam, when we had dinner, I mean, he was trying to give me all vegan food only. I mean, I was suffocating. And I mean, at the end of the day, we went to an Indian restaurant, and he ordered an Indian meal with a lot of that the Indian vegetarian food. But I've told him that, I mean, look, you have butter in that, you have a paneer in that, which all are animal products, number one. But I would go for a tandoori chicken and a good glass of lassi. I really was, craving for my tandoori chicken. And he felt very odd. I know that. I mean, but to be honest, to very clear about things, I would say that I am not at all convinced that that is a better option for a person who would enjoy his steak, who would enjoy his chicken, who would enjoy his tandoori chicken. I would still say that there should be possibilities. These two arguments are very powerful. The water consumption, but still I would say that the pork is consuming less water. If you argue about the carbon emission, of course, beef, yes, is a very strong argument. But all big animals are another reason for that to worry about. But on the other side, do we have any scientific alternative? Because meat gives a lot of things which we don't get from other foods. The deficiency of a lot of vitamins, for example, vitamin D, for example, the vegans, for example, they have to go for substitute. They have to work a lot to get all these substitutes. But what I get from my meat is not substituted by all other things. I would say that I'm a vegetarian and non-vegetarian because I eat a lot of vegetables also. Because I'm not against vegetables. I would like to eat a lot of vegetables, but I don't want to leave my meat. I don't want to leave my fish unless I'm convinced. The moral argument, yes, to an extent, it influences me. I would like to see a situation that animals are not killed. Any animals are killed for food, but in the nature it happens otherwise also. And the whole nature is full of animals who are predators, and this is happening. And we, as a developed species, we don't go for hunting animals anymore, but we cultivate our animals, and we have developed techniques to reduce pain. And these are the ways we are trying to address the moral issue. But still, there is another possibility that is coming up, and it's already in the pipeline. We are now scientifically able to produce meat in the laboratory. I'm not speaking about the vegan meat tasting food made of soya or other things. I mean, for example, in India, it's very popular, the Nutrela and Nutri-Nugget, which many people would say that this is the vegetarian meat, and they want to have the meat taste, and they try to get it from some other source. But I'm not happy with that. But I would like to have my steak. But without killing an animal, can I get my steak? It's possible now. The space astronauts, when they go up, they don't take all their meat up there. What they do is they take steak and they culture it and they reproduce it in the small laboratory that they have. They can culture the meat and they can reproduce the same meat without killing an animal. From these cells, they can develop new meat. And this is already possible, and this already started happening. First it came in Israel. Israel, there are restaurants where the meat that is produced without killing animals. If you have a moral reason for your, rejection of meat, well, you can still, of course, the original meat came from an animal, but you don't kill any more animals to get that meat. The best steak you can reproduce, just reproducing it by, cloning it. Simply reproducing, like printing, you can produce it in the laboratory. And that's produced in Israel, and that's available in restaurants. And Singapore last year has licensed restaurants that sell the laboratory reproduced steak and meat. So this is the answer for the future. Perhaps the moral question, humans are not going to leave meat. We have got the taste, like our great ancestors, the hominins, 2.6 million years back. Since we got the taste, we don't go back. And humans have a tendency to stick to what they have and further go forward. And we will find scientific solutions for that. Perhaps in the coming centuries, we will find more efficient ways, but we have at the moment a solution which is in the pipeline. In next 20, 30 years, most part of the world, you will be getting your steak, your burger piece coming from one masterpiece and reproduced in factories. But that's real steak, not artificial one, reproduced automatically. And it's like printing, it's reproduced and reproduced and reproduced. You don't lose the quality of it, and you can identify the best meat and reproduce it without killing the animals. Perhaps that's a scientific solution for this great dilemma. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much for sharing these facts and figures with us. And now let's move on to the participants. I'm seeing a lot of people raising their hands for a very long time now. And whoever wishes to ask their question can raise their hand through the hand raise button, as I can clearly see. And please be precise with what you want to ask. For the start, I'm going to ask Raj. I think he has raised his hand for like 10 to 20 minutes and just continuously asking me to unmute him.
Yeah, so my position on veganism would be the ethical position. So veganism is a moral philosophy by which we try to reduce as much as possible the suffering caused by us to other sentient animals. So that is my first position. Like, it is just an extension of human rights itself. Like, if you have this sort of a right not to hurt another human being, then you're obligated not to hurt other animals too, because they are also sentient life. That is one major aspect of veganism. And one thing is, veganism is just a moral philosophy against animal exploitation. It doesn't have any connection. Like, it doesn't imply that it doesn't hold under its wing all the other things that you stated, whether the health benefits or be it the environmental benefits that you get from a vegan diet. That are all part of the whole thing, but that just comes as a bonus. And let me tell you something that American Dietetics Association, the largest association of dietitians and nutritionists in the world, they have accepted that a well-planned vegan diet is adequate for all stages of life, including childhood, pregnancy, and adulthood. So, when a dietetics association like that puts out a peer-reviewed journal like that, it is quite clear that if we plan our vegan diet properly, we can get all the essential nutrients. And talking about proteins, all the essential amino acids are produced by plants, and that is how these animals eat these plants. And when meat eaters eat these animals, That is how meat eaters get the essential amino acids, basically. And all the nutrients, if you want to supplement or be it however you could, take these vitamins, and you could be sufficient on a vegan diet. And one thing is, not only the vegans are the ones who are deficient in certain nutrients. There are people who are deficient, like non-vegans, who are deficient in a plenty of nutrients. Like if you just do a blood work, you can easily find that you might be deficient in a lot of nutrients. Like it is not a vegan specific thing. So if you don't appropriately plan your diet, you could be deficient in a lot of things. And now talking about the ethical aspect once again, I would like to say that this, like I said before, is an extension of human rights. I would say, like if you don't want to hurt a human being, then you definitely shouldn't be abusing, exploiting, murdering other sentient beings too, because they feel pain. They have the potential to suffer. That is the number one criteria we must focus on. And if you feel like animals are different or something like that, I would like you to answer something. It's called
Sir, I would request you to be a little precise because of
yeah,
the.
sure. Sure. I would like you to answer one question, which is called the name the trait argument. Name the trait argument is basically it states like it goes like this: name a trait that is absent in an animal, that if the that if present in a human being. I mean, once again, yeah, that is present in a human being, that if absent in an animal, we would be morally justified. It will be morally justified to kill and eat that particular human being. Let's try to repeat it once again. What is the trait that is lacking in animal? What that which is present in a trait-equalized human being, that if so is lacking in a particular human being, would be okay to murder and eat that particular human being.
The fun one is the moral argument. I mentioned about that. Moral argument is one of the strongest arguments in favor of veganism. But veganism is not sustainable now. Why? Because only 1% of the population is now vegan. And more people may be going to veganism. But how, for example, how do you provide protein to the whole world's population? Vegans have a very, very radical position. They want everybody in the whole world to follow veganism. No matter what's the right of other people, what's the liking of other people, what's the wishes of other people. Their right to be imposed on other people. Like they accuse the meat eaters that our right to eat, imposing upon animals, they try to impose their views upon other people. Why should I follow it? Why should I follow it? Why should I make all these great exercises? To be fitting in the vegan, framework. I don't want it. I just don't want it because I feel it comfortable and natural that the way humans have been eating 2.6 million years would be more natural, and the other is quite an unnatural way of living, in my view. And I would respect the views of vegans. I would appreciate their honesty in their positions. But the way they want to insist their position, they can certainly campaign. They can win the 99% of the other people who are not vegans to follow their path. And if they're convinced, they should follow it. But there is no way that a vegan can impose their views on other people and can be arrogant to other people who eat meat. They should have tolerance to other people. They have empathy to animals, but not empathy to other people and their choices. That's the whole problem with the vegan radicals. These two arguments, the ethical argument or the moral argument, and the other argument which is connected with ecology and carbon emission, these two I would take. But I know that, for example, when you produce rice, how much water you're using for making rice? For 1 kilogram of rice, how many liters of water you're using? It's enormous quantity of, much more than a kilogram of pork. Rice is one of the biggest water consumer and ecology damager of all the grains. Still, vegans are all eating rice. They have no problem with that. This argument does not fit for rice, for example. Because of course, veganism is a worldview. It's an approach, and many vegans would not even use the leather for their shoes or any animal products as a principle, or anything that even coming from dead animals they would not use. And that's a position. Of course, they have the freedom to do whatever they like. And nobody is imposing them to eat meat. But they have no right to go into the plate of other people and ask them to take it away and fill it with the vegan alternatives. It's none of their business. You can argue, you can articulate, but it's the moment you can convince it with real arguments, then only it will be followed by other people. And I'm not personally convinced about the vegan argument. Number one, I don't think that it's globally not applicable. The food distribution chain can be seriously affected. I have a lot of other arguments about veganism, but I always value the moral argument and the ecology argument. That is why I would always prefer a steak coming, which is reproduced, how it is done in Israel or in Singapore. That is something I would say to address this issue. But all the same, I respect those people who are vegan. I understand their position. I would say that with the same argument, for example, one of the arguments, as I told you, is the health argument. How it's a fallacy. We know it. Because we have facts and figures in front of us. And the second argument is very simple. We can actually work a lot and produce a lot of other things, and then we can fill up. You can take away your steak, you can take away chicken, but we can put other 25 things and can get that vitamins and minerals that you would get with our product. That is what they say. You should not eat what you want, but instead we have 100 different ways to fill up that things. You take away your food and eat what we provide. No, that's the choice of people. That's the choice of people. And why the whole world is not getting convinced about the vegan food? Because the fundamental urge of taste. For example, I like meat, I like fish, I like egg, I like its taste. Only if for health reasons I should not eat, I would stop eating. But otherwise, I would look for alternatives. That's my personal choice. But all the same, I will respect a vegetarian, I will respect a vegan, I will try to understand their positions. To whatever extent I can apply that, I would try to see that. But also, I would say that they should have tolerance to others' choices, others' eating habits, and others' way of life.
All right, now let's move on to the next person. Shreya, I would like you to unmute yourself.
Yeah. Hello, sir. Yeah. My question is pretty much the same as Rahul regarding what trait that is there in humans that is not there in animals. What trait in animals, if it were what trait, if it were absent in humans, would you eat a human? That's the moral question, actually. Name the trait. Yeah.
This moral question is something very important. For example, can we, for example, kill another human being? That's the biggest immoral thing. For example, in a war, how do we kill other people? We have been doing it for centuries. From the tribal times, as a tribe, we have been going and attacking other tribes, and we have been killing. That's wrong, we know. The pacifist movement is strongly arguing against war. The whole moral position is against war. But hundreds of wars, every centuries, we have killed a lot of people. There is no moral justification for that. I would not support any war. I'm a pacifist. But we are not killing other human beings for eating. All the same, look at the animal kingdom. There are so many animals that are predators. So many fish that are predators. There are many animals that are living on other animals. And we got the clue 2.6 million years back from other animals only, from the animal kingdom only. And then we have developed to a new level now that we don't anymore go and kill animals in the forest where they are naturally living, unless and until they are grown there for our food. I would still say that there is a moral argument. Still, there is a moral argument on that point. But what is there in our body that is different than an animal is, that's at the root of it. It's a moral question you are bringing out. They are closer mammals. A cow is a closer mammal. Or the first animals that humans ate was zebras. That zebras were the first animals that perhaps humans have been killing and eating. Or the carcasses we have been eating. That is what all the paleontologists are insisting. But why did we go for that? because that was a necessity and we understood. And without eating meat, perhaps our brains would not have developed. Do you think that, we did a mistake 2.6 million years back that we started eating meat, and that we did a mistake that we started eating the cooked food, cooked meat, without which our human evolution would not have been possible. Human brain has developed because of the cooked meat that we ate only. So that's something that has helped us. That doesn't give a justification for that, but also it doesn't give a justification that, well, we can make a lot of other alternatives to fill up your plate, which we like, but you may have to like it also. That's not fitting. That's not convincing for anybody. People are more concerned about carbon emission. It's not a vegan issue. It's an ecological issue. It's a kind of an issue connected with survival in this planet. So carbon emission is addressed in very different ways. So when you produce milk, for example, you are forcing yourself, not eating. Forget about eating. But what about milk? Milk is something that is, when you need cattle, you need dairies, dairy farms to produce milk. So how to reduce that? For example, in Europe now there is, an alternative milk is very popular. And their argument is not vegan argument, but their argument is carbon emission argument. That's more convincing for people. If you say that because it's vegan, you should follow it, you can give your alternative to milk because it's vegan. Only the 1% who is otherwise interested in vegan food would go for that. But this argument about carbon emission is a strong argument. Their advertisement focuses on one thing. Look at our carbon figures. And these carbon figures have been the key. And they're selling it on that point only. And look at the figures of our competitors. That's the milk products. There are a lot of people interested in alternative milk, which would reduce the carbon emission. If the carbon figures are marked on their packet, but they're using Tetra Paks. That's another side. How much it is ecologically correct or not, one has to address again. Then second thing, how many people are convinced? Not less than 6% of the people who otherwise would be consuming milk are now interested in alternate milk. But 6% of the population, for example, in Scandinavia, are not even vegetarians. But this argument, the carbon emission argument, worked very well, not the vegan argument. Because the argument, when it goes with hundreds of arguments, you have a fixed position. Veganism is your religion. That's a worldview. So now you want to find one reason, second reason, third reason, fourth reason, any reason anywhere in the world, you have to articulate to that position because you have to establish veganism. So you are a vegan activist then. So the moment you are a vegan activist, I would have two thoughts to understand what you're speaking. But if you're speaking about issue-based things, but a lot of people would try to understand it a little different. So I would say that the question of the moral issues that vegans are raising are partially valid, but it's impractical at this moment to a large population of people now that we have in the world now. It's not, you cannot impose veganism to the entire population of the world. You cannot make alternatives to meat for the whole global population in a certain time. But perhaps before that, you will be producing replication of meat in the laboratories, which perhaps is better option than vegan hundreds of different alternatives which they want to impose upon the meat eaters.
Thank you. And now we have Ravish Khare with us. So please unmute yourself and try to be precise as much as possible.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So this is a very difficult question, about, vegan versus meat eating. I would connect it to the last week's discussion where we said that, other animals we, use for testing purposes. And as we can, reduce it, perhaps that's the argument, like, getting a meat which is artificially produced without killing the animal, as you were talking, laboratory grown meat. That's a better option than going completely vegetarian or vegan. So that's a good thought. Both are related actually, last week and this week. But now there are two things, two extreme examples that are there. One is the Aghoris. I don't know whether I came in late, so I don't know whether this was discussed or not. These are people who eat human flesh, but they don't kill humans. They eat dead humans. And I think, when I look at that, I feel that we should not stop them. It's okay, if I were to, look at the issue in completeness, but they are actually stopped from, though the person is dead. So what's the point of stopping? And on the other hand are the giants. Now they even don't kill plants. They'll not eat anything that grows underground, like, carrot or radish or potatoes, because to eat those things, you need to kill the plant. So it's the huge, this is a question which I don't have an answer, and I keep an open mind from all, quarters who say, different things. And but I do agree that as lesser pain we give to other animals, I'm okay with it. And Aghoris, I'm okay with them. I don't know, what are your thoughts?
Aghoris is a very, very, very strange question. I mean, I would personally feel that, I don't know whether it's legally allowed now to what they have been doing, because it's also a question of the right of other people. Because the person who died, he also has a right. I mean, he has not agreed that somebody else eats the flesh. That's one major question. It's a violation of their rights. And the families are not giving a body in the crematorium to be eaten by somebody else. The Aghoris is part of the religious ritual. They would eat the flesh of people, the dead bodies, the carcasses, earlier, but I don't know whether it is still done. I would suggest that it's the violation of even if it's a religious ritual, it's connected with somebody else's body. And they have no right to touch somebody else's body unless they have offered this body to be eaten as part of a religious ritual. And they are actually encroaching the crematoriums and taking dead bodies without the permission of the families or the people. Even for a dead body, the person who lived should have given a permission. Even for a scientific experiment or harvesting the body or giving organs, we have to give permission. Otherwise, it's not done. But for Aghoris, it's not done. Also, eating carcasses of animals or human beings or whatever it is, that can create a lot of health issues. It's more than health issue. it's a huge issue of our value system also. I've read stories of people who are trapped in a boat where there was no food and and water. And when people died, to survive, they've eaten the dead bodies of other people. That kind of stories occasionally come. But these are rare, ways of surviving in a very, very complicated situation. But Aghoris is part of a religious ritual. Perhaps one has to simply stop, is my personal view. But on the other side, the Jains, very interestingly, the Jains would drink milk. They would eat a lot of sweets where you have milk products included in that. So they are not vegans, they are vegetarians mainly. And of course, they don't eat anything that is growing under the earth, and the Digambaras would even wear anything, which would be against natural course, and they would like to run without any cloth. And some of their priests would cover their face because they should not breathe any little insect. They are very careful about walking. This is an extreme form of their expression. Well, they should, but they are not insisting that all other people should be like that. That's the one thing. The coexistence in a society asks for, if they want to practice, a life which they find perfectly okay, which if it's not disturbing other people, they should be able to practice it. For vegans also, I would say that if vegans feel that they should abstain all animal products, I would appreciate. And if anybody asks them to eat meat or force them to eat fish or milk, that should not be done. They should have their right to practice what they think right, and others should have the right to practice what they think right. It's a kind of, you have to respect other people about their lives. You can criticize it, you can explain it, you can put scientific reasons telling that your position is wrong. You can convince people. It's persuasion, not forcing people. That's the whole problem. So you cannot, bombard people with your way of living and your way of life, and you want to put things in my plate, with the stuff you like. And you say that, but this, I mean, take away your steak. All the things in the steak, I'm going to give you another 64 small things, and which are going to give you what you get in the steak. You must eat that, not the other one. I mean, who is going to accept that? So that argument would not work. It would work when people are getting morally conscious and ecologically conscious, and I mean globally conscious. I mean, that could be one major argument that would go for, growing animals for food. I mean, that will also endanger many species. That's another thing. For example, sheep, sheep cannot grow anymore in the natural habitat. And if you leave a sheep in the forest, it will die after some time, because it cannot, I mean, the growth of its wool is so much that it won't survive after 2 or 3 years. And they can survive only if it is removed in the apt time. So there are many examples, I mean, like that. For example, cows may not survive if we stop rearing cows anymore. And for example, the normal hens, I mean, many of these, we will have to grow them to keep the species surviving. That's the one side of the whole thing. But I would always say that, but if you can produce meat without killing animals, and that would be the best thing possible. And other arguments, well, if it's convincible and if you bring up sufficient alternatives in a sufficient way, there will be people willing to accept it. I'm not yet convinced. Personally, I'm not yet convinced that the global population can be fed with the present availability of vegan food. And even if it is, made available, they should be able to convince with the taste, with the liking, and their choice. Because food is a fundamental choice of the people. You cannot encroach the right of other people to eat what they want. You can educate, you can pursue people. Why people go for certain food? Why people drink, for example? We all know that, excessive drinking is dangerous, but still people drink. They have the right to drink. Even smoking, well-known thing that it's not good for your health and it's bad, in fact. But you can make controls on that, considering the danger and considering the kind of health dangers that it is giving. And then you reduce the consumption by educating people. And then it's a kind of but you cannot stop people smoking even. But meat is not in that way. So 2.6 million years we have been eating meat. And now for the last, few centuries back, some people came and said vegetarianism is the highest quality of food. Some 4 or 5% of the population on the global level are convinced. In Britain, it's expected that 1% more of people may go to vegetarianism. In the near future, in the present, veganism may grow, something like 80% up. But it's such a tiny, small thing. Even if 80% up, globally, if it is 100% up, still it will be 2% of the whole population only. So even if there are more people, there is not enough production for vegan food. Even if it's produced, people should be convinced to buy it. That's the whole thing. So the moral argument would go, but more and more people should be convinced about that. And everybody has their choice. The fundamental thing is food is a choice. It's your right to decide what you want to eat.
Now we have Mr. Saptarshi Bhattacharya with us. Sir, if you can unmute yourself.
Good evening, sir.
Yes. Yeah.
Sir, in India, if we see, this battle is going on. When you say vegetarianism, veganism, number one, vegetarianism is very different from veganism. In vegetarianism, we drink milk also. And vegan people, they say, don't take animal products. So my first question to vegan people is, which will actually put my position clear, what is that position as far as mother's milk is concerned? It is also a product of animal, mother's milk for a child, number one. Number two, India has around 47 million children under the age of 5 who have stunted growth. And this stunting is because of lack of protein, because their food contains carbohydrate and starch and very little protein. And the problem is in the midday meal also, around 14-15 states are giving egg in their meal as a protein. And egg is a whole meal. We know it has got full nutrition. But other states like Madhya Pradesh and all are fighting because of moral issues to remove egg from this thing. Now we know that milk can give protein, but milk cannot give. There is a lot of corruption. You can dilute the milk. states which has very good social indicator like Tamil Nadu, they give eggs 5 days a week to the children, and other states are also giving. So I would suggest, because most of these things which are there, like vegan people, I think it is a rich people's atonement for eating meat. Their guilt is there. That is why they are pushing for this. For a country, developing country like ours, we cannot go for 100% vegan meal. Number one. Number two, we have to see the cultural issue. We cannot bring morality into the kitchen. We have to see the culture, the lifestyle, the tribal people, the downtrodden people who need protein. They go for pork. The Dalit community in India, they go for pork. They eat pork. So our aim should be to make sure they don't get tapeworm, and how to make that meat more healthy, more cheap and easily available, rather than cutting out that protein in the name of morality and pushing them to more stunted growth, which will again push them into poverty. So, and the other last point I want to bring, India has the biggest number of cattle in the world, but our production of milk is low. We don't eat cow because it gives us milk. If we put pure veganism into our society, what will happen to those farmers who get a little bit extra money by selling milk, by poultry? Because we know in agriculture the income is very low. In dairy farming, there is a chance that we can pull out farmers from their poverty, and the government has been thinking. But on the other hand, if we stop them from eating, people from eating meat or food, this animal product, it will be a dichotomy, and then they will not be able. Then it will again go. So I think it is this veganism is a rich country's fad or trend, which we as a country, China has actually come out of malnutrition many people, because pork is consumed in high numbers, and they are also buying a lot of soya from India. So I want you to, I would like you, because what you have told I would say as a Malayali, you have been eating everything, but in India there is an emotional thing and religious thing. So there should be a proper, the scientific thing which you should give out to everyone to buttress your point, that why we should not bring morality into kitchen, but we should bring scientific basis nutrition in the kitchen.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very positive thought, in my opinion. I mean, for example, malnutrition is one of the major problems that Indian children or the children in Brazil or in Africa are facing. And one of the best ways to address malnutrition is providing them milk products. That's how we have been fighting malnutrition for centuries. And if you take away milk from their glasses, and what would you give? Well, the vegan can argue that we can give soya milk, and soya milk has another problem. It can also create a lot of allergic reactions. And I mean, at the end of the day, the producing soya is, absolutely against ecological standards and requirements that we have. And so take away your egg, take away your milk, take away your curd, take away your yogurt, take away your butter, and then the vegans are trying to make an alternative market to provide alternatives. But we are addressing a still higher problem, which is so important, that we have to address malnutrition. Every day, thousands of children are perishing because of malnutrition. And if we can provide them some basic food, some milk products, and many children who otherwise would become blind would not become blind. And we have a large dairy production in the whole world. Distribution is still a big problem. So we have a system that we have developed over centuries. You can try to alter it, but without seeing the hungry children, without seeing the malnutritious children, without seeing the dying children, without seeing the problems of protein and requirement of protein and other requirements of human body, well, this small minuscule minority, if they think that they can produce alternatives to the whole world without even caring the malnutrition problem and the perishing children's problem, well, that's a moral question. That's a fine exercise. One can do that. One can try to make a moral argument. Of course, if it's more convincing, we will try to make alternatives accordingly, and if it fits to the taste also. But we have to address a further serious problem of malnutrition. If you take away your milk, take away your butter, I mean, how are you going to address this malnutrition problem? How are you going to address the meat, I mean, the protein crisis? Do we produce enough protein? Can you supply all this protein? Do you have warehousing for this? And even if you have warehousing, if people reject any food, I mean, will it work? Their eating habits are there. Their drinking habits are there. Their tastes are there. You cannot impose things. You have to convince people. And if it's convincible, others will accept. You cannot impose ideas on people without considering the well-being of people. Thank you. That's a good thought.
My name is Sundar. I have been vegan for past 2 years. I was living a vegan life just because of the ethical reasons. So coming to the ethical part, you have already agreed to the moral concepts because you respect vegans, their choice, and also if you got the alternatives of this meat, you will shift to the vegan diet. So
no, don't put words in my mouth. I would not go for vegan meat. It's not tasty. I tried it many times. It's not tasty. It's not
vegan. The alternatives.
Yeah, I would go for meat alternatives with naturally produced meat in laboratories. If we have a viable alternative to get my meat without killing an animal, that's a better choice. But certainly not vegan food. No. I'm not interested in that. I mean, you can advocate that, you can promote that, you can articulate that. That's all perfect.
Yes. So you have agreed the moral aspects of killing animals is bad.
No. You don't try to put things on my mind. I didn't say.
Yes, we vegans have already been talking about this, but others are not accepting to have a debate, or they are not open-minded to this one.
Okay.
They already have some closed mind and come up with some prejudiced mind like that.
Okay, agreed. Okay, fine. That's the point. So you think that others have a prejudiced mind. That is why 99% of the global population simply reject vegan food or the idea. All 99% of the people have a closed mind. It's an approach. But also I would say that the vegans are not convincible enough. They're not convincing other people. They don't have to go into meetings and make sounds, but they can write articles, they can articulate, they can promote their views. And if it's convincing for people, they would follow. That's how there's an open marketplace of ideas. The world, I mean, it's an open marketplace of ideas. If veganism has something very good, because anything that will survive, anything that is good for people, people will take it and it will survive. If veganism was convincingly so good, the whole globe will run behind it. I mean, anything that is really convincing, people will take it. Or sometimes it may take time to convince, things. You have to articulate, you have to follow, continue your effort. You can win, you may not win, but still you can follow your position and try to convince people. But I am not convinced that vegan food is a real alternative to global food crisis. For example, I would say the food crisis is still a bigger problem than the problem in connection with the vegan arguments are taken forward. That's my position.
All right. Let's move on to the next one now. So we have Jia Prasad with us. Please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yeah, thank you, Shubhi. Sir, good. Thank you for the opportunity. I just wanted to add 3 points, just to quickly address it. So first, I studied in a 7-day Adventist school. So just wanted to say that it's the only Christian denomination which is vegetarian. So my teachers promoted vegetarianism, where I converted. At home we are non-vegetarians, but we at that point I was so much motivated by their arguments in school that I converted to vegetarianism. So first point, I just wanted to explain my biases there. Second is I came across books and documentaries like Meat Your Meat, Cowspiracy, and the fast food things behind fast food. So second is that, and third I came across is this blue zone diet and veganism. Also I try to explore, and I found there's a spectrum. So first extreme of the spectrum is if you see, is not veganism. It is little more radical than that. That is fruitarianism, where people eat only fruits, not even vegetable or underground vegetable. So that's the spectrum. It starts from there. Or even more radical, there is, Assam, there was a person, an activist, who was on glucose. She was on a fasting diet, who was on glucose for many years. Iran Sharom something, right? Iram Sharom, yeah, some name like that, right? Iram Sharom, right? Yeah. So this is the extreme. Like she was only on glucose. She didn't have anything. And there are other extremes like breatharianism. They have, I mean, that's a pseudo thing, like, but they're only on air or solar, Surya Yoga or something like that. So they don't eat anything. So that's one extreme. Then slowly we come into fruitarianism, we come into veganism, then we come into vegetarianism, then we come into pescetarianism, that is only fish. Then we go on to non-vegetarianism, then beef. Then you go to extreme in China, where they have everything: cockroach, mosquito. There is a mosquito halwa also, like that. So there are extreme pervert non-vegetarianism, and then the other extreme is cannibalism, where people eat.
The spectrum, yes, yeah.
Yeah. So what I wanted to say is that we are just highlighting few choices, and we are putting people under bracket. So what I prescribe myself is reducitarianism. So this I found just last year.
What is that?
And yeah, see, that's the thing. Reducitarianism is 2 years back I found out, is a concept where you reduce being from this side of the spectrum. That is, you reduce the meat, you reduce the dairy, and you go have more of this. More of the green plant-based diet, because in blue zone diet, blue zone are the areas. I just wanted to tell, it's a very important principle. The blue zone are areas where people live the maximum 100 centenaries, like Japan, the Greek, and they identified few spots of communities.
Precise.
Blue zones. Yeah. Okinawa is the place in Japan, town or a city in Japan, Okinawa, where they found that most number of people live up till the age of 100. And in Greek, there is some island, and in Amazon, South America, there is some city.
Less, I mean, because come to the point.
Yeah, the point is, the blue zone diet, they found the research that when you're maximum having more of plant-based diet, the chances of you to have a longer life and lesser diseases is more. So what?
Okay. Now I got the point. I understand the point.
Exactly, and I think we are already above the time that we go with. So I would really like other people to, be precise as much as you can and club down your question.
I would just answer this question. The point is very simple. The Seventh-day Adventists are promoting vegetarianism. It's well known. I mean, but there are studies. They try to promote a kind of statistics. These are, monitor, the kind of statistics that is motivated statistics. People produce. You find an objective to be proved. Then you look for evidences that are fitting to that thing. You cherry pick things. Then you have a confirmation bias already, and you stand on that. And then you are looking to establish your bias. You look for things that are fitting to you, and you take that, and you don't see, and you have a blind eye on the other things. For example, Japan. I have been in Japan. I've been working in Japan. I've been working almost a year in Japan. I mean, in agricultural international cooperative. The Japanese Agricultural Cooperative was part of an international organization that I was working. I know about the food habits of Japan. I know about the life expectancy issues in Japan. One of the major things in Japan, what's the Japanese menu? They are one of the largest meat eaters in the world. And fish is part of every food, and seafood. Everything is fish, and fish is abundantly used in Japan. The life expectancy, this is a clear confirmation bias, I could say that. Life expectancy increased everywhere in the world in the last few years. It's connected with advanced medical care and other health benefits that we have. and the living standards have improved everywhere. That is the reason for the life expectancy growth. Japan, as a developed country, its healthcare system is superb, and their life expectancy has been systematically growing because of that. But not only in Japan, in Scandinavia, in Germany, in Switzerland, all these countries where the life quality is higher, where healthcare is available, where the living standards are better, people are living longer. Very clearly, Japan has one of the longest life expectancy, and that's clearly connected with the healthcare that they have and the kind of the other benefits that they have. Similarly, in many European countries, the life expectancy is very high. Even in India, the life expectancy has been growing systematically from 1947. If you take, the life expectancy was something like 27 years because child mortality was also a measuring point. Now it has grown up to 65, 70. And why? Because we didn't turn more vegetarian during this time. It has been growing for other reasons. This is a clear confirmation bias. It's not connected with that. Number two, the wide spectrum of eating habits. Yes, we can have a lot of different eating habits. Breatharianism is clearly a pseudoscience. Nobody can live with photosynthesis. That's what they are claiming. And that's, then they cannot be human. They should be plants. People cannot live on sunlight. This is not extreme. These are pseudo ideas which are propagated. And also, if one goes for vegan diet, that may not be sufficient. That may not address our nutrition issues. That's the whole question. That may not be practically possible to provide food to people for the whole people. Also, it may not fit to the taste of people. So it's all question of your taste, your liking, and your preferences, your choice. The individual liberty to eat what they want is the primary thing. You can sell your idea. Vegans can sell their idea, but it's we others who decide we want to buy that or not.
Okay, let's move on to the next person quickly. So we have Mr. Ratish Kiki with us. So please unmute yourself.
Hi, sir. Good evening.
Good evening.
So I have a doubt. This vegans, they said we cannot kill a living thing for our food. So those are even the plants do have life. So how can they eat plants then? If they cannot kill even the animal, plant both has life. And should they wait for the plant to die and eat, or it's my doubt. So another thing, sir, and many of the religion, some food or some meats are forbidden, like in Hindus, cow, and Islam, pork and all. So is there any scientific reason for that, or is it just a belief for that? That's my question, sir.
Yeah, that's a very, very different and interesting question. The taboo of food comes from the tribal times. The taboo on pork, not only eating pork. Pork is haram for Muslims. The reason is the Arabian tribes, many tribes had, the whole Semitic tribes have, for example, taboo on not only on pork. For example, fish without scale, they cannot eat. And if any animal which does not have this claws, they cannot eat. So in Old Testament, which is also taken by the Jews as well as Christians, says that you should not eat any fish which does not have scale. It's a sin, and it's one of the biggest orders of the God. And similarly, the several Arabian tribes considered pork, or not pork. Pork is the meat. The pig as a taboo, and that has been taken. All the tribal beliefs were taken when Muhammad has been establishing his religion, and that came even in Bible and in Talmud. This area had this belief. There are prohibition to eat pork because pork does not have this clause, and therefore, if one is a true Jew, if one is a true Christian, also one should not eat pork, but nobody bothers it now. In Europe, for example, they have been eating pork long time. And when Christianity came also, they didn't bother about the biblical teachings. They follow it. And no Christian would follow, or no Jew would follow, unless he's a very religious person who wants to follow it verbatim, the idea that fish without any scales should not be eaten. Many fish, many tasty fish do not have. For example, eel does not have scales. So you cannot live with all these taboos. These taboos came from that. Also, cows, for example. Cows were in the Vedic times. If you see the Rig Veda and the Yajur Veda, you can see cow sacrifices there. It has been mentioned by a lot of people, including Swami Vivekananda has been mentioning about the the sacrifices of animals, including cows at that time. But later when Hinduism formatted in a different way, cow became apparently the agriculture community. That could be one reason for the development of the taboo, because this was the livestock was also used for cultivation. They were a farming community. They had settlements with a lot of production, the agriculture production. Farming has developed during this time. So during this agricultural farming, they used cattle for farming. But on the other side, sacrificing these animals, that was perhaps not for eating. Sacrificing this animal was a part of the rituals of past times. So they've been killing hundreds of animals or thousands of animals for sacrifice, like in the Kamakya temple or what has been happening in Nepal. They've been killing animals, including cows, for religious reasons, for sacrifices. But apparently, to stop that, to keep this cattle for the agriculture, perhaps this has begun. That's one observation that some of the historians have mentioned. But of course, later it got a religious color, and I mean, it's sanctified by religion. But the beginning perhaps was the preservation of the farm animal. That perhaps was an important thing. Another interesting thing regarding vegans are against all kind of, I mean, this is another connected point which you said, against, they're against exploitation of all animals. Would they not take rice and wheat if animals were used to plow it? That was an exploitation of animal. And would they eat sugar? And I mean, the extreme vegans would not take even sugar, because to purify sugar, you use bones of animals. And most of the, if you go for any tablet, many tablets, not tablets, I mean, the capsules, this cover, that has animal parts. And many insulins, so for example, the insulin or many vaccinations where animal products are involved. To what extent we go? And one see, for example, if one cannot wear a woolen cloth and go for alternative solutions, if one cannot wear a leather shoes, and if one wants to go an alternative solution, if one cannot use a leather bag and want to have an alternative solution, well, you can impose all these kind of things, but you can do that. You can make exclusive shopping for that, shopping centers for that, and I mean, those who believe in the vegan way of life, they can practice it, they can go there and buy it. But to make the globe, the whole world, follow this kind of an extreme life, pattern would be a huge exercise, which would be very acrobatic and not realistic. And also, the plants have also life, which is not taken into consideration by vegans. But farm products are made. If you don't take, of course, if they say that, the Semitic belief that only humans have, the Semitic belief is that only humans have soul. The Oriental belief is that all animals have also soul. And some people, when these ideas came, the plants do not have a life. They don't consider it as having life. It's not a living thing. So they take, plants, they can eat plants. But to produce farm products, in many countries, still, more than 50% of the global production is still connected with cattle. The animals' work is taken to produce this. Is that not exploitation? There is no logic in the whole thing. These are extreme ideas. But of course, you can practice it so long as it's not affecting other people. It affects us only when they come and try to stop us or attack people who are wearing leather shoes.
Okay, so the very last question that we'll take up today is by Drishti. Please unmute yourself. And I think this would be the last question that we'll take for today evening.
Yeah. Hello, sir. Hello, everyone. Myself, Drishti. Hope I'm audible.
Yeah, yes, you are.
I'm a mother of 2 kids, and both are one is 8 years old and other one is 5 years old. And I myself am vegan since last 3.5 years, and my kids are vegan since 1.5 years. And I am vegan. I became vegan for ethical purposes because I was born in a vegetarian family, and I never knew about the cruelty part in dairy industry. But once I watched the video from Dr. Neil Bernard, who is the main person of PCRM, Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, I was really shocked, and I felt that in India, this must not be happening. Only in the US it will be happening. But in India also, I found out that cows are exploited, and the milk that we get from cows, who are mothers actually, the milk is not ours. It is it is for the cows.
Drishti,
So
these all arguments we have discussed already. If there is anything new,
Yeah.
please come with it. Yeah.
So I just wanted to say that, like, I became vegan for ethical purposes, and since last 6 months, I'm also a health conscious person, being on a vegan path. I'm raising 2 kids vegan, so I'm really very conscious that they grow up into healthy human beings.
Yeah. Good.
And
What's the
after
question?
and like, I just wanted to say, like, innovations are happening in all the fields, and whatever value systems that we are following are the value system which were followed by our ancestors and which are past. And we have evolved and come so far now. And there are so many means by which humans can fulfill their nutritional requirements. And if it is possible without exploiting animals, then what is the harm? Like, we eat food for our taste.
Thank you very much for that question.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll come to that.
Yeah.
Okay. The question is very simple. We cannot prolong now because it's pretty late. The question is, if we can say a scientific solution to end up all exploitation of all animals, until then, I mean, we should be articulate enough to reject all those food. If that's the question, I would suggest you not to eat rice. I would suggest you not to eat wheat, because when you produce rice, I mean, you are using, pesticides to kill a lot of pests that would damage the rice. You are destroying a lot of life. And when you make rice, in half of 50% of Indian farms, we are using animals to work for us like slaves. Cows and bulls and oxen are working to produce. When we eat any vegetable, you have to be very sure that no animal product is part of the fertilizer. For example, even cow dung, if you use, it's an animal product. It's not only milk. And so if you want to reject everything and want to make an absolutely Puritan life without, no animal work for your procurement of your grains, your rice, your wheat, and no animals, no little insects killed for your, good fruit. Not even a little caterpillar was taken away and killed to be sure that, your fruit is absolutely free from all these kind of things. Well, that's a great ideal. Try it. You can be satisfied, because if you overlook something which is very difficult, if you see only what is convenient, it may be comforting you, but it may not be realistic if people are sensible. Thank you very much.
Okay, so I believe this is the end of our segment today. Thank you everyone for participating. And sometimes opinion may differ, and what's best is to learn and create your own perspective with the logical reasoning. So thank you everybody for joining and understanding, and see you all next week.
And also one more sentence I would like to add. I have been articulate in presenting a position that you should have more tolerance to people who would not want to follow a vegan life, would not buy these ideas of vegans. That doesn't mean that if any vegan would want to follow a life absolutely away from all animal products or anything that's connected with animals, well, welcome that they can do it. But that's also, they should respect that it's the freedom of others to reject a very unpractical and almost impossible idea. Unless and until you forget things conveniently and show only things that is convenient to you. Anyway, difference of opinion should coexist, and we should coexist. The vegans and vegetarians and non-vegetarians should coexist. We all should have difference of opinions, and we should articulate our positions, sell your ideas, but let people buy it. That's the whole thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sitting so patiently, and I think we can end the session.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.